Have you ever just stopped and wondered who's really in the driver's seat of your life? I mean, we all chase that feeling of being in control, right? Of making things happen. But what if that whole feeling is just an illusion? Let's dive into that really provocative idea together. You know the feeling, that incredible surge of pride when you can say, I did this, I built this from the ground up. It's a powerful human instinct. We tell ourselves that we're the authors of our own story. But what if that I isn't the full picture? What if it's just one character in a much, much bigger narrative? So, okay, now let's look at this. A pretty radical idea from the Quran. It's suggesting that every single thing that happens, from our smallest win to our biggest loss, is already part of a pre-written script. Now that directly challenges our sense of, I did this, and really forces us to ask, who's the one truly writing our stories? All right, so where do we even begin with an idea that huge? Let's start with the part that's probably the toughest to swallow. The concept that we, as human beings, don't really create anything from scratch. This brings us to a core Islamic concept called qadr, or divine decree. The best way to think about it is to imagine a grand cosmic blueprint, the entire story of the universe, with every single plot twist, every character, every choice has already been written down by a divine author. From this viewpoint, we're not originating the causes and effects, we're living through them. So when we say I built this, it's not exactly a lie, it's more like a metaphor. See, we're participants in the story, absolutely, but we're not the authors. We're kind of like actors following a brilliant script. The real and only creator, known in Islam as Al-Khaliq, the sole originator, is God. And that's a massive mental shift, isn't it? From being the masters of our universe to being instruments within a much, much larger one. But, how do you even wrap your head around an idea that abstract? Well, the Quran gives us this incredibly powerful and honestly really humbling parable to make it feel real. A story that shows our limits perfectly. Now, this verse, it's not just talking about some ancient idols. It's holding up a mirror to every single one of us. Picture this. A tiny fly lands on your hand and snatches a single crumb of food. The Quran says you are completely and utterly powerless to get it back. Just think about that for a second. It's such a simple image, but it exposes this deep, profound weakness that we all share. And that is an excellent question. I mean, of all the creatures in the world, why pick a fly, right? Why not something big and powerful, like a lion or an eagle? Why this tiny little pest that we barely even notice? Well, the answer is just fascinating. The fly has chosen precisely because it seems so insignificant to us. But if you look closer, it's a masterpiece of engineering. You've got these incredible compound eyes processing information at insane speeds, advanced flight mechanics that let it zip around and change direction instantly. So the challenge is deep. If we can't even create something as simple as a fly, how on earth can we claim to create our own destinies? But the story doesn't stop there. This whole parable of the fly goes way deeper than just our physical limits. It turns into a metaphor for a much more subtle, more dangerous kind of theft. A spiritual one. And this is where the parallel gets so powerful. Think about it. A fly lands on you without you even noticing. It steals a tiny crumb and it's gone. In the exact same way, Shaitan, the tempter in the Islamic tradition, doesn't need to make a grand entrance. All it takes is a subtle whisper in your heart, a tiny seed of arrogance, a flicker of doubt, and poof, your spiritual peace is stolen before you even know what happened. That whisper of, I did this all myself, is really just an echo of the very first act of arrogance, which is attributed to Iblis, the father of fire. His whole rebellion started with that single prideful thought, I am better. So in a way, every time we take full credit for our successes, we're kind of tapping into that same spiritual rebellion. And here's the really humbling part. That helplessness is total. Just like we can't rewind time to stop the fly from taking that crumb, we can't, by ourselves, just erase the stain of arrogance from our souls. We are completely dependent on divine mercy to make us whole again. Now, this idea of not being able to take something back, it's not just a spiritual metaphor. It actually lines up perfectly with the fundamental laws of our universe. Seriously, think about it from a scientific perspective. We live in a universe governed by entropy. The arrow of time only ever moves forward.
You can't unbreak a glass, you can't unsay a hurtful word, you can't unlive a single second. Once it's done, it's done. This physical reality we all experience is a perfect mirror for our spiritual helplessness. But what if? What if there was someone who could operate outside of those laws? The Quran tells this amazing story about a man who doubted resurrection. And so to show his power, God caused him to die for 100 years and then just brought him back to life. It was this incredible demonstration that the ultimate control over time, life, death, and restoration belongs to the divine, and the divine alone.
So if our whole human experience is kind of defined by things being taken and lost, what would true power even look like? Well, it would have to be the exact opposite, right? The power to give back, to restore, to make things whole again.
And this brings us to such a beautiful and powerful contrast. On one side, you have the fly, a symbol of our weakness. It takes, and we can't get it back. But on the other side, you have the miracles of Isa or Jesus, which are a symbol of divine power. He heals, he restores, he gives life back, all through the will of God. And did you catch that crucial little phrase at the end? By Allah's leave. Even the greatest of prophets are shown to be channels for divine power, not the source of it. And that just drives home the main theme here. The ultimate power to create, to heal, and to restore belongs to God and God alone. So where does all of this leave us? I mean, if we can't create, we can't control, and we can't restore anything on our own, should we just throw our hands up and give up? Well, the answer is a surprising and actually a resounding no. In fact, this realization, it's the very first step to finding true strength. This journey to a totally different kind of strength, it starts by really letting these ideas sink in. First, you start to see your life not as something you built, but as a precious trust you've been given. Second, you have to acknowledge you can't control what gets taken away. Third, and this is key, you reframe your own helplessness not as a weakness, but just as the reality of being human. And finally, you embrace that reality as the gateway to something called tawakkul, a deep, liberating trust in God. And this is really the heart of it all. Recognizing our limits isn't about feeling small or insignificant, it's about feeling free. It frees us from this impossible burden of trying to control every little thing. It finally lets us lean on the one who is truly, and always has been, in control. You know, there's this beautiful paradox that's captured so perfectly in this thought. We have this incredible, immense potential inside of us, like an entire ocean in a single drop. And yet, our very existence, that drop itself, is completely dependent on the will of the Creator. We are both incredibly significant and at the very same time completely dependent. And so I'll just leave you with this one question to think about. If you truly create nothing and you truly control nothing, what do you really have to fear? Maybe, just maybe, letting go of the illusion of I is the first step toward finding a peace that you could never create on your own. Thanks for exploring this with me.